Yeah, we're live. It is, I don't know, a little bit. I think, did I make it on time? 7:03. I'm a little bit slow. That's what happens. I was setting up my fan over here because it's hot in here. I don't know. It was 104 or something today. And today we're going to talk about, as I showed you in the thumbnail, timing chains. Not all timing chains, but more accurately, the trophy four-cylinder timing chain. The video that I just posted today, maybe some of you guys have seen it already. Hopefully the live feed guys, the two live crew, you guys are already. But I did a disassembly on the trophy four-cylinder, took the balancer off, took the front cover off, and then so I could show you guys what's going on with the timing chain, because one of the, or many of the comments that we got when I was asking about, hey, what's going on with this thing? Oh, Pontiacs are notorious for stretching the timing chain, and it's jumped a tooth, and all of these things. I've never actually seen one jump a tooth and then still keep working. Usually I would think it would break teeth if it was going to do that, but maybe somebody's had that happen. I never have. We've never seen that on the dyno. But as you saw in the video, it did have a lot of chain slop. I brought the trophy four-cylinder over to the machine shop today and got to meet some really great guys. I'm going to tell you, Dave Basham and the crew over there. He's got a machine shop, BMS Race Engines. So he's got a machine shop over there. He's got a Bonneville car. He's been to West Tech and stuff. So he does lots of cool stuff. And so when I drove over there with that, all the guys came out and we were standing around talking because they've done lots of them. They've seen these before. They know what they are. Lots of them are Pontiac guys. So it was very cool to immediately be one of the guys because I was sporting a Pontiac motor. But they're going to take the trophy motor and make it good, hopefully. But I was talking to them about the timing chain and asked them, how much slop should this thing have from the factory, despite the fact that it has a tensioner, which is kind of cool. I mean, if you look at, the LS motors have, the modern stuff has tensioners on it, and this did, a lot of the overhead cam stuff was kind of like that, at least having a fixed tensioner. This was spring loaded, so it was kind of cool. But I honestly think, and you guys can let me know in the comments what you think, but I honestly think that, as a matter of fact, that is going to be our poll for tonight. So we'll jump in and poll it right now. Was the tensioner the only thing that stopped this trophy four-cylinder from, let's say, jumping a tooth? Let's see if I can fit chain in there. Yes, 96. Okay, was the tensioner the only thing that stopped this trophy four-cylinder chain from jumping a tooth? So in essence, did the tensioner system on this trophy four-cylinder actually save this thing from coming apart? It had, as you saw, if you've watched the video, you can see how much slack it had once I disconnected the tensioner, once I took the spring load off the tensioner. This is a 1961 motor, and I'm certain that that is the original timing chain. I feel very comfortable that it's the original timing chain. I'm 100%, well, as 100% as you can be for a motor that's old. It certainly looks like that spring and that those rub pads and stuff for the tensioner. Those look like the original ones. I don't know how many miles this thing had on it, and we're gonna be nice to it. I mean, whoever did what they did to it beforehand obviously wasn't nice to it. But I think that this is the original one. It's got a lot of stretch in it. I just didn't know, as you saw from the video when I was talking about it last night, I didn't know how loose or tight they were from the factory, because we know if we put something like this on, like this is a comp version for a Pontiac. If we put this on, if you put this on a typical V8, you kind of want it fairly tight. You don't want it like this where there's lots of slop like in that trophy four-cylinder with the tensioner. I mean, and the tensioner would pull it over, which was nice. But I'm thinking that probably was the only thing that was stopping this thing from getting all getting all crazy. So if you haven't watched that video, make sure you go check it out. I'm thinking that probably saved the day. I do like the fact that the tensioner was not the like fiber gear deal that tends to break pieces off and throw them into the oiling system and cause the motor to seize up. The chain was very, very beefy. It was very thick. It was not a double roller, but it was very, very thick. And I'm sure that they did that because of the harmonics in the 4-cylinder. And then I thought it was very cool that they not just put a tensioner in there, but it was fairly like simplistic but elegant the way that they designed this. I mean, it was very effective. And this was, this was back in the 60s, and they probably had tensioners way before that. But we don't normally associate those, that sort of technology with a certainly not a 60s V8, but in this case, a 60s 4-cylinder. But the trophy 4-cylinder is over at the machine shop. It's going to be disassembled. We're going to go through it. We're going to make it right, and then we'll put it back on there. What I'm hoping is I can find another cam core, because I'd like to keep a stock cam, this particular stock cam, because I kind of want to show when we put it back together, it's going to go back together with the head that's on it. I can run the stock exhaust or intake manifold, but it's going to have higher compression and it's going to be bored out. So it's going to have a flat top piston. It's going to go to a 400 standard bore if we can find and it'll have a flat top piston with valve release. And then what I'd like to do is run it with a stock camshaft and then do either a regrind cam or it probably will be a regrind cam off of the stock one, a regrind flat tappet cam, and then run that and then do the cam upgrade while it's on the dyno. We obviously will take a look and make sure that if this is going to be a small base circle, which it almost has to be unless we weld up the cam. And when I say we, I mean whoever's going to be doing it, not me. Unless they weld it up, it's going to be a small base circle cam. We just need to make sure that the lifter's not dropping down too far and coming out of the, I don't know if this is a splash oiling or if it's an oil feed through it. We just need to make sure it's still going to work and operate the way that it's supposed to. So that will be a concern, but I'd like to do a cam swap, and I'd like to stay with the flat tappet cam. So we'll put a new cam and lifters in it with a new setup, and that way we can see how much the cam is worth. Because if we throw, the camshaft and the compression at it, we don't know what was responsible for what. And also the other variable to that is now the motor is sealed up. Even if it was sealed up and the heads were sealed, and which they're going to have a valve job and they'll be done. So the heads will be sealed and the rings will be sealed. So how much do we get from that? And then how much do we get from the compression? And then how much would we get from a camshaft? So I want to run that all with the stock intake manifold. I have feelers out on trying to find a 4-barrel manifold for this Trophy 4, the 4-cylinder version, which would be good. And then we'll put the camshaft in and run it with this. The thing that I like about this, I'm getting ants on me. The thing that I like about this cylinder head for the Trophy 4-cylinder is that even though it's a small valve head, it's also a very small chamber relative to the other heads that I have. So I have later heads that I want to put on so that I can run the later intake manifolds and run a bunch of the cool V8 stuff. But they're almost certainly going to be bigger chambers. So now I'm out of focus. It's getting unhappy, just getting generally unhappy. I don't know why it all of a sudden decides to do that. That's better. So I'm going to have to do a head swap, but what I think is going to happen is if we do a head swap with one of these existing heads that I have, it's going to lower the compression, which is not terrible. It would be bad to lower it with a big chamber head and the dish piston, because then we would be sub 8.5. We might be down in the 7s or the high 6s, which would not obviously be ideal for power. I don't know that we want to add that much boost to make up for that. But if we put right now it has a 70 cc head on it, and if we go up to something that's an 80 or 90 or 100, then we need to be concerned about the big change in static compression. So we'll see what happens. But I do want to put a later head on it. I'd like to put a later big valve head on it. And then I also have this head. I picked this up today. Fancy aluminium. This is a Speedmaster head, and it's all CNC'd. I'll take you over there, and you can walk through there, ooh and ah, at all the CNC goodness in there. I was talking to Dulcich today because, as you can see, they've got the Engine Master stuff all set up there. They're shooting. So, but I was talking to him today. We were looking at it because he's got a Pontiac also. So we were looking at it, and we thought that it make not just this head, but all the Pontiac heads tend to make a really good small block head. Let's see, the exhaust side. But the problem I have is I got valves with this too, and I wanted to put it up over there on the flow bench and test it. But when they machine the valve guides, they're not machined correctly, and the valves will not go in the valve guides. So I mean, it's not a big deal. It's a fairly easy fix, but it just it just ruins my plan for flow testing them tonight to see what they flow, because you get something new and you get something new and you get excited about it, and then you want to test it. Come on, camera. Stupid thing. There we go. So we want to test it, but I can't. So I'm upset. I also got some intake manifolds that we want to run, and I'm going to measure this chamber volume because this chamber shape is different than the other ones that I have. Both the small chamber head that I have on the Trophy 4-cylinder and the other ones that I have that came off of the V8s. So I want to see what this one is. Hopefully if it's a small chamber, aluminum head, big valve, CNC porting, it should be all of the right good things that we would want to put on there. And then we could do a head upgrade, and then this head is going to accept the, yeah, that should accept the later intake manifolds. So that will all be good. So let's see what you guys got going on. Let me know what you. Yeah, Michael, this could go on the Trophy 4-cylinder because it'll bolt right on. Yeah, aluminium. Let's see. Ford decided to put gear adjusters on those tensioners. The ratchet of the chains got loose, and then the tensioner couldn't react past each NOS and tensioner. Yeah, that's problematic. Are these guides 8 millimeters? I don't think so. They're not like an LS size. I think that these they're not 3/8. I think that they're 11/32. It was shiny. Do you have to block the ports, check flow without a valve? You'll need to plug up the other port and have the valve guide hole. I don't have. So you want to block off the exhaust port and just flow it with it being open like that, you mean? We could make a plate for the exhaust side, right? We'd also have to plug the valve guide, but that's not insurmountable. Richard, do an on-camera tour of West Tech and show us where where your bedroom and cot are. Yeah, I actually have spent the night here in the shop. In fact, many times. I don't do that so much now because now I get to stay over at Mark Sanchez's place, which is very cool. And you saw on the video that I did with the check and piston valve clearance on the 5-liter Ford, that you saw a little bit in the background was his shop, because that was his motor that we did the test on. He's got a lot of 5-liter stuff, as you might imagine. Richard, I got some GT40 sitting on the shelf, an F303 and some bolt-on 17s. We have all that already, but thanks. Check timing on my big block Chevy with the chain after we rebuild, and it'll bounce 4 degrees or so. Shove some clay in the exhaust port. The other T4, Casey, you're hard selling the T4. Ford, I can't show you the Batmobile. That's like top secret stuff. So Dom, you think that the chain was stretched? It is putting tension on that because when we release it, it releases the tension. No, I don't. Somebody's asking if I have part ownership of West Tech. No. It would be, what would be cool is for me to get and I wish that I had this. I could have maybe kind of used this one. It should be similar, but to have a new trophy 4-cylinder timing chain and just see what the difference is. We could stretch them both out and see how much farther one stretches than the other one. Do you know what alloy is used to produce a roller camcorder? No, but I think that they use different ones. Dan might know what the material that they use. How long have you worked for West Tech? I don't work for West Tech. I don't have a job here. Jake, what's the general cost to cam swap a 4.8 doing the labor myself? Well, you just cost whatever cam you want to buy and springs. Dom, the only way for us to know what's going on with that spring, I mean, I would imagine that if it's the original one, I would imagine it's lost at least some of its tension. We don't really know, and we would just be speculating especially by you looking at a video, you would just be speculating about what's happening with it. The only way for us to know for sure would obviously be to measure it versus a known new one to see what the tension is. I had to, when I took the spring off, there was tension on the spring because it didn't just fall off. I had to pull the spring to get it to come off. Richard, have you ever seen a timing chain from an LS brake? I haven't. We run the stock style single roller chains for the LS on everything, even the 8,000 RPM deal that we did. There is a better chain that we use, but the other stuff is stock stuff. Let's do a 13-to-1, 4853, and then BS intake. Why would you do 13-to-1 with that intake and stage 1 through 3 cams on E85? If you're going to make it 13-to-1, first off, you're going to make it 13-to-1, you should make it as much as you can. 13 on a 4.8 might be getting close because you can start getting into a position where you have to add lots of dome to it, which I don't like to do. So getting that kind of static compression out of a smaller displacement motor becomes more and more difficult. But if you're going to do that and you want to make power, you need to put big cams in it, and then you need to put much more intake on it than that, and run at much higher speeds with the camshaft and the short runner intake, and and lots of head flow too is also going to be beneficial. I wish people really knew how few companies actually make cams for all these people who slap them in a box and put their name on them. The C5R chain. Take the chain out and see how much it will bend compared to the new one. I don't have the chain anymore. It's over at the machine shop. My Oldsmobile 455 is 12.8 to 1. I mean, that was back in the day. That was kind of, you know, that's like LS7 kind of compression. That's a little bit more than LS7, just I guess depending on how it was put together. But I think that those were 12 or 12 and a half. But that was real common. I think probably less today. Although 12, 13 to 1, 14 to 1 for E85 stuff is really good. Are the Irish change, are those the ones from Germany? $57 likes, 163 people here. Let's see how our poll is doing. Was the tensioner the only thing that stopped the trophy 4-cylinder chain from jumping a tooth? 70% saying yes and 30% saying no. Oh, shocking that no bolts broke during the teardown. I was a little concerned with some of them. The thing that I liked about this motor that gave me hope when I first saw it was when we were taking the water pump off, that was damaged. I didn't like that. But when we took the water pump off, there was green coolant in there. So that tells me that at least they they did some kind of servicing on this thing. Michael, shame on you. You forgot the like button on the streams. Oh, Dan, I was changing Porsches too. The how many Ugga tight were the front accessory drives? Actually, none of that stuff was. And I had forgotten when I took apart when I took the damper off, I used a puller, but that thing would have just slid out. And I disassembled everything and then did it. But you know, you live and learn. That's what happens. But the other stuff was not too bad. The shorter ratchet on with the 9/16 taking the front cover bolts, some of those were fairly tight, but not like, you know, nothing that's insurmountable. And once I did that, and two of them had some rust on them, which was kind of holding the front cover on, but you know, a little bit of prying and it kind of freed itself up. And then we sprayed WD-40, which we know is not a lubricant, right? I'm new here, new-ish. Do you ever do anything with the test subject besides boost them until they die? Very rarely do I boost them until they die. That's once in a while kind of thing. Do you put it in a chassis? No, I don't have chassis to put these in normally. What I do, though, is when I'm doing this testing on these motors, I do a whole bunch of tests. So I run lots of different camshafts, lots of different intake manifolds, lots of different cylinder heads, assuming that lots are available for whatever I'm doing. Sometimes the motor that I'm doing doesn't have aftermarket support really. So it's just up to me or whoever to make stuff work. But I want to show people in that engine family that like that engine family what works, because there's a lot of myths, a lot of old school myths. I'm going through that with the 2.2 and 2.5 Dodge stuff, the turbo stuff. I think that there are some things that are being bantered around about it, like every other engine family, that's that I don't think is 100% accurate. So I want to test all that stuff to show people, here's what happens when you use a tubular header. Here's what happens when you change the AR on a turbo. All of that's just good information for anybody out there that's deciding to make some kind of performance upgrade. WD is a water dispersant. That's where it gets its name. To me, it looked like the harmonic bouncer fell apart when you took it off. Well, on the Pontiac, there are, I think, 6 bolts holding it together to the hub. The hub will just slide off. It's not pressed on like at least this one wasn't, not pressed on like a Chevy is. The other part bolts to the hub. So I unbolted those, which I didn't need to do, and then it came apart because it's in multiple pieces. So Dan, you want to crazy glue it back together? Speaking of old school myths, currently building a GMC 276. Any testing you've done? I've not done a 270. The only inline 6-cylinder that I've done is that 292 that I can remember. I'm still hoping you'll figure out how to make a turbo act like a Roots. If you want immediate boost, which is I think is what you're talking about, you can size the turbo to do that. Most factory things are like that. If you made a Big Bang video every 6 months or so, your channel would explode. I would like to think that that's true, but I honestly don't think it is. The Big Bang videos are not even close to my most popular videos. They're nowhere near that. Flex seal it. Did it have the right water pump on it? I think it did. I think it was. I now think it was working. When they take it apart over there, the Pontiac guys over there, they should be able to tell me. They have not only have they run and built and raced lots of Pontiacs, they've also built specifically these motors. So they have experience in them. I'm going to ask them about that. I'm glad you reminded me. It's one of the things. One of the things, or a couple of the things that we talked about when I dropped the motor off, is I wanted them to. They're going to leak test the heads to see how the Super Richie razor blade rebuild did, and also he's going to see how much taper and out around the the bores are. Richard, what was your favorite video to make so far? I don't know. That's actually a good question. I'd have to go back and there's been a lot. Have you checked for lobe lift? I've checked for lobe lift on the trophy camshaft. Yeah, it's all even, and it's 330 lift, so it's a tiny little camshaft, and it's consistent for all the lobes. Actually, the intake and the exhaust are different on this camshaft, but the intakes are all the same and the exhausts are all the same. Richard, have you ever done a turbo comparison, downpipe versus no downpipe at all? Just exiting the turbo? I don't think I've ever let the turbo just exit to nothing. That's a general statement. Turbo size is very critical to performance. Small will spool quickly, but also kill the higher RPM. Yeah, you have to size the turbo for your application, but if you're trying to get it to make low speed response, you have to size it to make low speed response. It has a split profile cam. It has a split lift cam. At least that's the way it measures. And I have somebody sent me the specs on it. Let me see if I can bring that back up. I think that I can. Taking a look. No, it's not that far back. Mickey Thompson head. I don't know. I have to look it up. I thought that I had an email on it. But it measures the intake, I think, and I'm just going by memory. One of them measures about 20 thousandths less than the other. Treehouse video. I did a lot of treehouse videos out there. Unfortunately, that thing's torn down, and we don't live there anymore. So how are the cranking rods versus the standard 389? I was told that, and they're going to check on this one to see, but these have forged rods in them. Some of them have forged rods in them. Probably the high performance versions, and probably not mine. Casey, thank you very much. Did you have a question? Was I not paying attention to you? Grey Wolf, is turbo surge still a thing? Yes, you can surge your turbo. You can't follow some static rule for LSA as lobe duration affects overlap versus LSA. Ever see how good a 2.2 runs with a burned wastegate hose? so it goes to all of it boost? Well, I think that the back pressure would eventually open the wastegate, right? Zach, no offense, but the Big Bang videos are getting old. You didn't have the algorithm exposure. Also, the Big Bang thumbnails are boring. People don't read. That's probably all true. But now we're going to delete you from the channel. I'm just kidding. So is the rod wider than stock? I don't know. I didn't measure it, so I have no idea. So a Jessel belt drive is best for accurate timing. That's not according to the conversation that I had with Billy Godbold, specifically Jessel, but belt drives in general. .471 blowers. There is one of these trophy 4-cylinders. They ran a 371 or a 471. Somebody sent me a photo of a Mickey Thompson one with a roots blower on it and a Hemi head, which was kind of cool. If I remember when we were kids, we used to put an aquarium valve. Yeah, the fish valves on the wastegate hoses for Dodges and turbo 2.3 liters. That's how when I was doing stuff with Dave from Tiny Avenger with his little SVO, that's how we were adjusting it. He had a little, it's just a bleed valve. It's just tricking the wastegate. Michael, that's excellent. You get points for that. His statement was, when you put fancy parts on the trophy 4, you have to call it the trophy wife. Anybody having issues with thread ripping out of the heads on LS heads over 650 lift at 7,200? Do you have some valve train instability happening there? Are you getting coil bind, or are you getting something else that would cause that? How much spring pressure do you have? Tony, love the Ford 5-liter piston to valve video. Can't wait for part 2. I think now, I was just going to do a set of airflow research heads, but we're thinking about adding other heads to that now. Getting back into cars makes me feel old. Reminds me where I hated E4s. We did a lot of stuff with, and mostly because we were not knowing any better. But I think back now to all the stuff that I did with the 5-liter Mustang and the Vortec, with FMUs and Pro M meters and the crane interceptor, and the crane interceptor was like really, really high tech for us. Sean, yeah, 200 seat and 420. 420 per inch. 200. Is this a hydraulic roller or is it a solid roller? Yeah, Mike, maybe they're over torqued. They don't take very much torque. Dan, I don't think Cup guys aren't using belt drives anymore, are they? So what's the goal? Half the power of a 389. I just want to show what step by step what it does. I would think I'm hoping that this head. I mean, I don't know. When I was talking to Dulcich, I said, I think that thing's going to flow 270. He said, I don't think it's going to flow 270. He said, I think that would be a lot. So we'll see. Dom, twisted wedge heads do improve piston to valve clearance, as do in any decrease in valve angle. I think the Ford heads are 20 degree, if I remember right. James, sent you an email, Richard, but I think I found the answer in your 408 454 video with the Crane 206 cam. Okay, I'll take a look. Uh-oh, Todd, what's going on, man? I sent you an email, try to call you. Does anybody out there, has anybody out there had any experience shipping vehicles? I need to ship a vehicle from here to Ohio. or not from here, from Northern California to Ohio. So if anybody has any suggestions on shipping companies that I need to get an engine, or not an engine, a car, the Omni, I need to ship the Omni out. Unrelated question: can a car with a CVT transmission, does horsepower become irrelevant? I understand that horsepower is important with a fixed gear, but what about a CVT? Maybe I don't understand your question. Are you talking about horsepower and torque being something different? They're just RPM related, basically. And so you, at whatever RPM your CVT wants to run at, whatever they've chosen as your efficiency range for your motor, with your CVT that they're keeping it at, it's making some horsepower number. All the shipping companies are just brokers. I've gone through that before, shipping other things. No, the Omni's going to have work done to it. Reliable, okay. Horseless carriage. I need something shipped cheap because this is a cheap car. Oh, Todd, man, sorry to hear. That's what I was wondering. Chevelle Richard, I shipped a car via Montway in 2021, $1,100. Is that Cleveland to Denver? Reliable. Did you ever test any truck 4.6 intake manifolds? Yeah, that video is up. I compared a PI to a truck to I think a Ford Racing one. But I did 3 of them, and the 4.6 liter truck intake is the one that has the dual plenum, the flapper valve inside. Turkish truck company. LS2, no start. Check the ECU ground. Oh, Cleveland to Denver. Okay. They charge a lot more for a non-runner. It is a non-runner, that's for sure. What's the highest percentage number you would accept for closed loop compensation on a Holly tune? I would want it to be really small if I did tuning outside of where I'm doing it. I don't allow it to compensate. I run it under open loop. I do all of that myself. Out in what I'd want to do, ideally, the way that I would want to work it, that it should be 5% or something. The tune that you should have in it should be right. And then if it needs to adjust a little bit here or there, based on temperature and things. And it may be more than that on temperature. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't need to be. It could be an open trailer. Robert, yeah, Troy told me that you'd stop by. I'm sad that I missed you. Okay, you want to come in with attitude? You're out. Pete Jackson gear drive, they definitely make noise. U-Haul truck and a car dolly. That's a really expensive proposition to go across country with that. Mark Sanchez has it's a whole thing. he has a trailer, and I have a truck that I'm not sure that is a little suspect. Threaded inserts work pretty good. So the first thing that you do when you see a parted head is everyone ooh ah, and then you go over here and you turn around. You gotta get the check the short turn radius on the exhaust. Oh, there's an edge there. There's an edge there. Wah wah. I don't know what it is, but that's what always happens with cylinder heads. L59 versus LM7 capabilities. I don't know why those would be different. Darren, you're just about to gap some Ellis rings. Yeah, you want to gap both the first and the second ring, the top and the second ring, but not the oil rings. Is West Tech hiring? I don't know. I'd have to ask Steve. How far do you want to ship? I need to ship from California to Ohio. Casey, are you asking about the trophy motor? How does the valley pan seal? It seals the same way that it does on the V8. It's just smaller. From watching your video, I know what the results will be, but will you run more part throttle runs just to put it to rest? I already did that video, and we already showed what it did. The thing that would happen with part throttle is part throttle stuff would be dependent on a couple of things. One, it would be dependent on how big a throttle body you're using, if you're using a throttle body. Because if you use a giant throttle body and a not very powerful motor, you'll just get closer to full throttle numbers at part throttle applications because it has enough airflow. And the reverse obviously also would be true. So it would be a function of the thing that you're testing it on and how big the throttle bore is, and then the different levels that you would test it at. But otherwise, I think we kind of showed what it does. Did you sell the Omni? No, I'm putting a motor in the Omni, a motor and trans, to get it emission certified as a T2 car instead of a T1 car. Ever thought of building a Gen 2 small block and an LS to DZ302 specs? I don't. I plan on doing a DZ302 version of the Gen 2, the combination of the LT1 and the L99. That's what would give us a 302-inch motor, because it'd be a 3-inch stroke and a 4-inch bore. And then you could put it to whatever cam you wanted. The DZ302 cam is a terrible cam. It wouldn't be the one that you would pick to make power. Are we going to see a Q-Jet on the flow bench? We can. We have one. I think we have one here at West Tech. Oliver has a couple. I think he has a couple different sizes. I think he has a 750 and an 850. So I could try that and see. Sean, would GM Performance LSX LS3 heads are they ported LS3 heads? Well, either way, it doesn't matter. They're not going to be too much. If you have an LS2, the LS3 heads will go on that. They'll make more power than the LS2 heads. It would be better if you had a camshaft. Yeah, the DZ302s would they love to rev. They had to rev, whatever your position is. They made peak power at a higher engine speed than the 327 and certainly the 350, only because they're smaller displacement. The stretch chain would retard the cam timing. Oh, Sean, you have a cam, okay? Yeah, take a look. I have videos up of cathedral port versus rectangular port heads on a 6-liter, and it's 25 or 30 horsepower, I think, in favor of the rec port head. But you do lose a little bit. You do lose some below 4,000 because the cathedral port head is a smaller chamber normally, unless you use a 317 head, and it's a different port and different valve size and stuff. Marcy and Veronica. So they take the Omni to Ohio in the mystery van. I have run the Windsor seniors. I think they're just called Windsor heads. The World Product heads. I actually had those on a 302. The first World Challenge car that I bought had those heads on it. A long rod Oldsmobile. If it had a change in the power curve because of the Oldsmobile, it wasn't because it had a change in rod length. I think that would have almost no effect on it. I have stock 243s. That's a good head. You can make lots of power with that. Don, have you thought about fitment of exhaust between the different heads that you have? No, I took later head exhaust and put it on an early head because I don't care. And I would bolt on what we have onto that. I bolted a header on the Trophy 4-cylinder after taking off the later, which I think is a GTO exhaust manifold, and it did nothing. I mean, it did. You saw, if you guys were here last night, you saw us 2 or 3 horsepower. It's 3 minutes left. No, we have 6 minutes. Built my first 5.3. What horsepower am I looking at? Texas Speed Magic Stick 4, 649 lift. I need to know what the duration specs are at 50 on that Magic Stick cam. It sounds big. Question: will a turbo cam? Yes, it will. You can run any cam and any motor, and it will still work. I don't know. I need to look at the specs on the 8720R1 to see. The problem with 4.8s is not whether it's a turbo cam or an NA cam. The problem you run across is if the cam's too big. On that small motor, it loses power down low. It makes it pretty soft. We will. Somebody's asking questions about the bolt pattern. We have headers for both conventional exhaust. The different exhaust patterns for the heads. We have the headers for both of them. Have you ever built a small block Ford 427 Cleavor? Not a 427. I think I did a 408. Is it more fun making lower power and fighting for it, or making big power easy? They're both good. You just want it to be more than it is, whatever that is. It doesn't matter if you go from 600 to 800, or if you go from 100 or less than 100 to over 100. All of that's good. It's just more. If you're going to test Q-jets, you got to get an air cleaner and turn it upside down. Yeah, if you're going to run them on the dyno, you definitely have to do the air cleaner lid flip. Yes, but an MS4 5.3 liter cam can go to 11. Others can only go to 10. So that's why you get it, right? Cash, what does a full day of dyno testing cost? You have to call the guys at Westech and ask them and find out. It varies for different kinds of motors. I think the carbureted stuff is less money. Fuel injected stuff is more money. Ralph, a 218, 227, that's pretty healthy for a 4.8 liter. You're definitely going to lose some power down low. How many engines have you sent sailing? If you mean broken, I did a TV thing where we were purposely trying to break them, called the Wheel of Death, and then the Big Bang ones all had some sort of disaster happen. 48, 53, 60, 60. Yeah. The Gen 4 60 didn't is still alive. Casey, you're still pushing those Webers? Have you done a Gen 3 Hemi Big Bang? I have. That video should be up. It made over 1,000 horsepower. You know, because Hemis are going to break. They've got pistons made of glass. Apparently, it's tempered glass. Supercharged twin turbo nitrous Big Bang. That's just going to break before anything else. Racer D, a friend of mine, drove his Chevy Bolt from Minnesota to India. It took 14 hours, and Google Maps says it takes 9 hours and 18 minutes. Sony Stock Trader, what effect did RPM have on the Big Bang motor's longevity? Could they have possibly handled more power with a 6,000 RPM limit if the rods are what actually failed? The rods are not failing from RPM. That's a stretch load, and that's actually not what's breaking them. They're breaking them from a strength load. I think it's the angularity in the rod with the cylinder pressure or power imposed. I'm kind of guessing. Actually, more RPM might be better in this situation, because the other thing we want to do is reduce that cylinder pressure. So we'd like to have peak power happen at a higher engine speed rather than a lower one. I had a lot of collapsed lifters and Hemis back when I worked for Chrysler. The other thing that happened, and I was a little worried about this when I ran the last 5.7 that I ran, that I ended up breaking anyways, because I didn't put the two plugs in the Edelbrock heads and it filled up full of water. But I digress. What I was worried about was when I ran the stock heads on it, because these were the stock original heads and had a lot of miles on them. So I think we just had a valve. I don't even know if we had a valve job done. I was worried about the seats coming out, because everyone was telling me that, yeah, the seats are going to come out. And you see lots of blown up Hemis in the wrecking yard that have that. And I know, because I purchased several of the intake manifolds from Hemis where that has happened. Because when you get the intake manifold that they're selling on eBay and you shake it, it's all full of piston parts. Kevin, I don't know what you're answering no to. Oh, you answered no in the poll. And we're going to shut that poll off now. So thank you for reminding me. We're at 66%. And it seems like as we let the poll go longer and longer, that we get more and more no votes. So was attention the only thing that stopped the trophy 4-cylinder chain from jumping a tooth? 66 yes and 34% saying no. So thank you guys for voting. Could we get a revisit the 4.8 crank and the 6.0 block and add boost this time? I've already run that combination with boost many, many times. And guess what it does? It does exactly what boost does. The 4.8 crank in a 6.0 block just makes less power than a 6.0 does, than the 6.0 crank. And so you're starting out with less power. And when you add boost, it's just making less power under boost also, because it's going to do that. It's a different, smaller, less powerful motor, even though it's, a high RPM D-stroke motor. What do you think about gear drives? I think guys put them on for noise mostly. Anyone add port injection to a stock LT L83? Yes, the guys at BTR have done that. Neon 2-liter D-stroke 2.4. Maybe for a class that you had to run in that was a 2-liter class. Happy to answer all the questions. The first gen Hemis, the ones that they did the neons that they did the neon challenges with. The 4.8 crank just makes you sad. The 5.3 isn't big enough for the Suburban. If you have a full-size vehicle, then a 6.0 obviously is definitely the way to go. Daniel, to see what Casey Nolte and I thought about may have helped the tensioner stop the lack of power, the lack of valve spring. My 300 Ford finally had a McHead gasket at 315,000 miles. I'm getting a little concerned actually with my truck. The oil pressure seems to be coming down a little bit. I think it's got a water leak too. Always love my 95 Neon ACR. Those are cool. Run 1540. I'm going to put 50 in it. I'm going to put 2050 in it. But it's not low all the time. It just today, it seemed like it was getting low at idle. So I'm going to check it again and see what's going on. Don, are you planning to use the stock rods and hold it below 5,000 RPM? Are you talking about the trophy motor? Cut your oil filter apart. We can do that here because we've got a cutter. Your truck deserves a razor blade rebuild. Actually, if I was going to pull the motor out of the 5.3 out of it, I would just put another 5.3 in it. Richard, have you replaced the heater hose fittings on your Chevrolet? No, I haven't. I've got an O2 as well, and it was intermittently leaking there. Are they in the engine compartment? Yeah, it's 105 here. Or, well, it was 104 or so. No, I wouldn't put a 6-liter in it. Actually, if I had my choice, I'd put a 4.8 in it. Yeah, an L33 swap in there would be good. Dom, yours will be the last question. So what do I consider low oil pressure? I don't care about a number. What I care about is when I see it change. That's what I'm looking for on the dyno. That's what I'm looking for in life. When I see a change, if it always acts one way and then all of a sudden it's acting differently, then something has changed to make it act differently. And so that's what I am going off of. I'm not going, because when I did the video on the low oil pressure and how we cured it, I got a lot of comments that are like, oh, that's not low. My stuff is lower than that. I'm like, I don't care about what the number is, and I don't want to say I don't care about what yours is, but what I care about, what I would care about looking at yours or mine or whose ever, is that what was it doing for this long period of time? And then now what is it doing that's different? And then now the question is now, why did it change? What changed to make it stop doing what it had been doing for a really, really long time? Just like if you have a motor on the dyno, if you do 10 or 20 or 30, or in my cases, 50 or 100 pulls, and then you, on your last pull, on your 101st pull, it does something different, you're going to go, well, why is it different now? I didn't change anything. All I did was repeat what I did before. Why did it do something different? It's the same thing with the truck. Why is the oil pressure now wavering down low? And to be honest with you, I haven't even checked the oil level, so I probably should do that. And on that note, it's time for me to go because I got lots and lots of stuff to do. I was going to flow test, get my flowage, but no. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow. And